Hello everyone. When it comes to the game part of being a video game, Azur Lane is a passing grade. The core gameplay isn't spectacular, and the current game modes don't do enough to keep it from getting stale. They'll release all these new characters for us to bring into the same content we've been playing for years. Now they have teased something back at CN Anniversary livestream, but that's not really enough after all these years, so here's some ideas for new modes I've come up with. AL has such a massive roster of characters, and this first one is meant to make use of that. At first glance it's a pretty standard tower mode. 50 stages of increasing difficulty, with a small bit of intel telling you what you should expect from the current one. However, each ship can only be deployed for one clear. After a stage has been beaten, the goals used to win will be barred from any subsequent stages, until the mode resets at the end of the month. It forces the player to think, for how long can they coast on fleets of underinvested ships with default equipment? When will they have to start introducing stronger ships? If they get stuck, is it worth burning one of their powerhouses knowing they'd be unavailable until reset, or just to grind out a breakthrough? But that's not all. Stages will also have hard mode restrictions, demanding particular hull types or enough ships of a given faction be present. As you go on, perhaps you have to face both at the same time, or they'd become specific. One stage might ask for a Cyclone light cruiser, while another Italian carrier, just as an example. Once the mode is cleared, all used ships will become available again for an additional use in a cleared mode. A stage is picked up at random from a pre-made selection of difficult stages, and the same goes for a restriction lineup, albeit from a wider selection, since it's easier to implement. This would allow players to continue playing if they choose for extra rewards. As for those rewards, since this is quite a gear-demanding game mode, it's only natural it should be a good source of equipment in turn. Lots of crafting materials as rewards in addition to random gear designs, including a new rainbow version for the tougher stages, allowing players another way to farm for top-tier equipment. A healthy amount of coins would also be awarded, giving the players a more engaging way to replenish their stockpile after getting drained by the latest you are, then farming the same maps over and over. The next one is a rework to challenge mode. Again, the current one is rather uninteresting. The bosses aren't all that strong and end up just being a damage sponge. So let's slash health pools by about half and bump up their damage to start. Throw in some more engaging attack patterns and that should make it be more than just forgotten. It still lacks incentive though. Let's fix that by adding a score attack mode that acts as the only reliable source of gems in the game. How's that for getting people's attention? Instead of a health bar, the boss has a damage counter tracking your score. Deal as much damage as possible within a 10-minute time limit, and earn rewards based on your leaderboard placement at the end of the month. The top 100 get 200 gems. That drops to 150 for the top 10%, 100 for 30, and for those who make the top 50%, they get 50. Passing damage thresholds would also give some less glamorous one-time per boss rewards. On the topic of bosses, how about a boss rush? The game has plenty of bosses throughout its life, why not throw a load of them onto a map and make an endurance challenge out of it? It could take place on a regular, if large map, featuring the battles the player could challenge in any order, in addition to a frontline base to heal at between fights. It would work basically the same as the one in Opsai, though in this case a player would be given 10,000 repair currency at the start that has to last the whole stage. The repair cost would be the same as in Opsai, so while it is a safety net, you've still got to play well to avoid damage. This one will be pretty easy to implement since it's made entirely of systems already in the game. I'm okay with the only rewards being cosmetics like the current challenge mode as well, since boss rushes are pretty one and done. Though I'm sure some absolute gamer would try an all commons challenge run. Given the game's age, and the sheer number of bosses to pull from, it's a bit much to put all of them into one stage. But that does mean they can have, say, a dozen per stage, and periodically add new ones with the remaining bosses. Since quite a few people mostly play the game on auto, how about going all the way and adding an auto battler mode? Assuming the new mode they teased isn't one. Since the player is meant to be a high-ranking naval commander, this could be a way of finally replicating large-scale engagements, instead of just implying that's what we're doing. This would be an expansion of the usual gameplay, featuring a much larger fleet and battle space. The player would passively generate oil and then spend it on deploying ships on their side of the field. The ships would then sail towards the right of the screen, engaging sirens as they go, until they either reach and defeat the enemy commander, or fall in battle. If they do fall, they will retreat and, after a recovery period, be able to deploy again. Before going into battle, the player would create a task force of numerous ships, and when battle begins can deploy as many ships from that task force, and in any order, so long as they can afford it. As implied earlier, only one of each ship can be on the field at a time. Otherwise, the ships behave the same as they normally would, with the same skills, stats, and oil costs, as usual. So loading up on powerful rainbows might not be the best play here. Naturally, since the power of the player is much higher here, so is the enemy. Mass-produced ships appear in swarms and strong humanoid sirens are common, as are ships that can put the hurt on the main fleet. Your carriers and battleships won't be safe hiding in the backline. The battle ends when either the players or the siren commanding the enemies' HP falls to 0. Also, character cut-ins and voice lines will not play in this mode, as there are many more than usual. It's just an effort to avoid Xenoblade levels of voiceover spam. For my final suggestion, a Season 2 to Opsai. In recent events, it's mentioned that since Compiler was defeated in Rondo, her mainframe didn't self-destruct with the others in Ode of Ever-Blooming Crimson, and as such there's still some remaining forces to mop up, lest it finishes rebuilding itself. This NA Ocean Purification campaign, as it's called, sounds to me like a good excuse to give Operation Siren an expansion. This would of course begin with a few new story chapters to play through first, before bringing us to the new game mode. As for what this game mode would be, a second attempt at the cancelled roguelike mode. One of the existing zones would be picked at random, with enemies buffed to at least a Corrosion 5 level, and once beaten, the player would be given a choice of buffs to pick from before moving on to the next one. This would repeat, gradually increasing in difficulty until the player's fleets have either sunk, or they've cleared 7 zones plus a stronghold for the finale. The player's typical tuning levels will be ignored in this mode, though ways to increase it for the duration of the run will be available through buff selection. Rewards would be based on what Opsai already gives out, but with better rates. Zones cleared in roguelike mode would also count as being cleared normally, and thus contribute to the monthly shop progression, so you wouldn't have to worry about grinding regularly instead of playing this mode. That's all I've got for this time. 3 new game modes and 2 updates to existing ones. I hope these are all distinct enough from normal gameplay, or at least have viable incentive to play them. That was my main goal with these, along with getting people to use more ships. Might be a lot to have all of them, but no one's going to get upset over their game having lots of content. Games are meant to be played after all, not a checklist you log into a couple times a day because you have an addiction. Anyway, what do you think of these? Got any ideas of your own? Feel free to share. Even if I'm shit at replying, I do read them. But that's enough from me, so until next time, fair winds and following seas.